Echoes of the Anunnaki and later faiths. As the moonlight drapes ancient ruins in silver glow across the lands once ruled by the Tigris and Euphrates, the whispers of stories older than written history seem to stir among the stones in these cradle lands of civilization. Myths of celestial beings known as the Anunnaki shape the destinies of kings, priests, and commoners alike. Centuries later, fragments of these same legends echo through the sacred writings of distant cultures, prompting a profound question: why do later religions reflect the themes and symbols of the Anunnaki tales? Scholars have long drawn attention to parallels between Sumerian mythology and the later Hebrew, Babylonian, and Canaanite traditions, where divine entities descend from the heavens to deliver wisdom or judgment. This recurring image, along with flood narratives, chosen individuals, and divine intermediaries, all first appear in Mesopotamian epics such as the Atrahasis and Gilgamesh tablets before resurfacing in later scriptures carved thousands of years after those first cuneiform marks. Could this repetition be the survival of ancient memory or a deliberate reworking of myth to fit new religious structures? Some historians propose that traveling scribes, merchants, and scholars carried fragments of these stories across lands, preserving them in temple libraries and royal archives. Through centuries of translation and adaptation during the Babylonian and Assyrian periods, these myths evolved, yet their core remained intact. Priests recopying ancient works infused them with fresh interpretations but never severed their roots. As such, the influence of the Anunnaki's world of divine hierarchy, cosmic order, and human creation quietly spread into the theological veins of later monotheistic traditions. In these transformed versions, angels, messengers, and celestial intermediaries mirror the roles once held by the Anunnaki rulers of fate. The resemblance goes beyond structure and seeps into symbolism. The concept of divine beings shaping human destiny, so central to Sumerian cosmology, finds its echoes in later depictions of heavenly orders. Some researchers argue this continuity arises not from direct copying but from the evolution of archetypes that express shared human longings for order, justice, and divine connection. Yet the question lingers: were these similarities intentional reflections of older sources or expressions of a universal cultural memory that transcended geography? Flood myths offer the clearest case. The Mesopotamian deluge tale told in Gilgamesh and Atrahasis recounts God's cleansing the world while sparing one virtuous survivor. Later scriptures repeat this same framework, suggesting a deep shared ancestry of ideas about divine judgment and survival. In both traditions, celestial beings guide humanity through destruction and rebirth, hinting that the Anunnaki stories may have served as the earliest moral and cosmic templates. The socio-political context, too, cannot be ignored. New religions often sought authority, legitimacy, and a link to antiquity. Reinterpreting revered ancient myths granted them continuity and divine approval. The Anunnaki, long remembered as powerful sky rulers, provided an archive of imagery and meaning by reshaping these symbols into new forms. Spiritual leaders and scribes bridged past and present, giving ancient new theological purpose. However, tracing a direct line between Sumerian deities and later gods remains contentious. Differences in language, worldview, and ritual obscure simple descent, yet the persistence of parallel motifs across vast regions suggests more than coincidence, perhaps. Human imagination naturally rebuilds familiar patterns of divine control, judgment, and salvation, or perhaps these echoes reflect a deliberate preservation of ancient wisdom about beings once believed to have walked among humankind. Archaeological discoveries reinforce this continuity. Temple carvings and inscriptions describing creation, councils of gods, and the divine appointment of kings reveal how deeply Anunnaki mythology penetrated civic and spiritual life. Centuries later, newly emerging faiths face similar questions about origin, authority, and cosmic law. Their use of familiar celestial structures offered stability and recognition, transforming ancient myth into new revelation. Survival of Anunnaki themes across time ultimately reveals something fundamental about myth itself. These stories adapt but do not die. They move through languages and eras, retaining the pulse of their beginnings. They expose the interconnectedness of belief systems and the enduring human desire to explain the unknown. From the clay tablets of Sumer to the parchment scrolls of prophets, one can trace the threads of this inheritance. Each retelling reshapes the divine, but the pattern remains. The Anunnaki, though veiled in new names and doctrines, continue to cast their shadow across the landscape of faith, their memory woven through the fabric of human imagination, waiting for those who seek to see the timeless design that unites the myths of the past with the faiths of the present. Unearthed Echoes of the Anunnaki.
Across the arid plains of Mesopotamia, where the winds sweep through the ruins of forgotten temples and sun-baked stones, whispers still drift from civilizations older than written memory. Excavations reveal the foundations of towering ziggurats, fragments of clay tablets, and intricate stone carvings, each one preserving silent traces of humanity's earliest pursuit of the divine. Among these relics, some are controversially claimed as tangible proof of the Anunnaki, yet
what forms the basis of these claims, and how do they align or clash with mainstream archaeology? The cuneiform tablets discovered in Sumer remain among the most frequently cited artifacts. Thousands of these ancient records unearthed from cities like Ur-Lagash and Nippur chronicle trade transactions, legal agreements, and administrative details of early urban life. Hidden within these archives are mythological works such as the Enuma Elish, the Atrahasis epic, and the Eridu-Genesis, which speak of celestial beings descending to Earth, creating humankind, assigning labor, and maintaining cosmic order. To some researchers, these narratives transcend mythology. They are interpreted as literal documentation of divine visitors described as the Anunnaki. Traditional scholars, however, view them as symbolic expressions of cultural and spiritual belief, yet the striking precision of detail, from the hierarchy of gods to the obsession with gold, continues to intrigue those seeking extraordinary explanations. Beyond the text, artifacts add visual depth. Cylinder seals uncovered from royal sites portray figures with horned crowns holding rods and rings while standing among humans in positions of clear authority. Conventional archaeology interprets these scenes as stylized depictions of deities, while others insist they represent encounters with beings once witnessed by early humans. Could these seals capture memory rather than imagination, and if so, what hidden truths lie encoded within their imagery?
Alternative archaeologists also draw attention to peculiar relics unearthed from cities like Kish and Uruk. Carved figurines displaying elongated skulls and exaggerated features have fueled speculation about distinct Anunnaki physiology. Mainstream science dismisses these anomalies as artistic style or rare genetic variation, yet across continents and millennia, countless civilizations depict similar hybrid or otherworldly forms, raising the question of whether
such patterns are coincidental or remnants of a shared ancient memory. The architectural marvels of Mesopotamia further ignite debate. The ziggurats, built with meticulous engineering and celestial alignment, stand as awe-inspiring testaments to ancient mastery. Archaeology attributes their creation to human devotion and ingenuity. However, some propose these structures were the result of collaboration with beings possessing advanced knowledge. The Sumerians credited to the Anunnaki were these monumental edifices, the physical legacy of such interaction. Echoes of Mesopotamian design reverberate through other ancient cultures, from the pyramids of Egypt to the temples of India and the observatories of Mesoamerica. The shared architectural themes suggest either independent invention or a unifying source of influence. Alternative theorists see this as evidence of global transmission of knowledge, perhaps from the same celestial teachers mentioned in Sumerian records. Skeptics argue for convergent development, born of similar human needs, but the allure of a common ancient thread continues to captivate. Smaller discoveries, too, have been reinterpreted through modern eyes. Tiny fragments of clay or metal, once thought insignificant, are now viewed by some as star charts or schematic representations of celestial movement. Could these etchings be remnants of ancient engineering, or are they simply humanity's early attempts to understand the heavens? The line separating interpretation from imagination grows faint, yet the mystery only deepens. Complicating this debate is the vast incompleteness of the archaeological record. Thousands of tablets remain buried, unread, or destroyed over the centuries. Entire libraries could still lie beneath desert sands, waiting to alter our understanding forever. Might future excavations uncover evidence that confirms the Anunnaki legends, or would such findings only intensify the enigma? Today, relics of Mesopotamia reside in museums, academic archives, and private collections, while scholars strive for measured interpretation. Online communities and independent researchers breathe new life into ancient speculation. The artifacts themselves remain silent, yet their presence invites reflection between documented history and the unknown. To stand before these remnants, whether in the ruins of Ur or the galleries of Baghdad, is to feel the tension between fact and possibility. On one side stands the discipline of archaeology, charting the brilliance of human progress. On the other lingers the quiet suggestion that perhaps behind these achievements lies influence from entities beyond Earth. The tablets, the seals, the ziggurats, and the anomalies together form an unfinished mosaic. Could these be the fingerprints of the Anunnaki, or the reflections of our own imagination? The truth remains buried in dust and time, waiting to be unearthed by those willing to look beyond accepted history. The departure of the Anunnaki from Earth. As the fading sunlight drifts across the deserts of ancient Mesopotamia, shadows stretch over the ruins of crumbling walls and weathered temples, remnants of a civilization that once turned its gaze toward the heavens, seeking meaning in the patterns of the stars and the motion of the planets. It was here, among clay tablets and sacred rituals, that the stories of the Anunnaki first emerged, describing beings who descended from the skies to live among humankind. Yet just as their arrival shaped myth and memory, so too did their disappearance raise questions that echo through the ages. The ancient tales not only speak of their dominion but of their mysterious withdrawal, their quiet departure from the world they once governed. Early Sumerian writings depict the Anunnaki as divine arbiters presiding over heaven, earth, and the underworld. They appear in myths of creation, harvest, and kingship, but scattered within these same stories are hints of retreat, narratives describing a time when the gods withdrew from close contact with humanity. Why would beings so intertwined with human survival and destiny choose to abandon the realm they helped shape in the Babylonian epic? Of Gilgamesh, faint traces of this mystery surface. Gilgamesh himself, part divine, seeks immortality through the sage Unapishtim, who survived the Great Flood. In his quest, he discovers that the gods have chosen to reserve eternal life for themselves, severing humanity from divine communion. Many scholars view this as a poetic expression of separation between gods and mortals, while others wonder if it reflects a collective memory of powerful beings who once walked the earth before departing into the sky.
Other Mesopotamian myths echo this same motif of departure. The Atrahasis epic recounts strife among the gods, a division between the elder Anunnaki and the younger Igigi, burdened with labor and rebellion. These divine conflicts culminate in the flood that reshapes the world afterward. Divine influence wanes, the gods grow distant, their once frequent interventions replaced by silence. Could these stories preserve
ancient recollections of the Anunnaki's withdrawal, explaining why the divine presence faded from daily life? Mainstream historians and theologians propose that the disappearance of the gods symbolizes the evolution of religion. As Mesopotamian empires shifted and dynasties rose, new deities emerged, temples changed hands, and older gods like the Anunnaki gradually lost prominence. The departure then was not literal but metaphorical, a reflection of shifting worship and theology. Yet alternative interpretations tell a different tale. Zechariah Sitchin's controversial readings of Sumerian records propose that the Anunnaki were not mythic deities but visitors from another world. According to his translations, they arrived on Earth to obtain precious resources, particularly gold, and when their task was completed, they departed. Their absence in the later myths would then represent a real event, the withdrawal of advanced beings who no longer needed to remain among humankind. Even beyond Sitchin's theories, similar echoes persist across world traditions. In the Hebrew scriptures derived from Mesopotamian roots, divine figures once walked among mortals before vanishing into the heavens. In Mesoamerican legend, gods such as Quetzalcoatl depart with vows to return. Could these be separate inventions or remnants of a shared human memory of celestial visitors? A recurring pattern binds these accounts together. Departure is often accompanied by destruction or renewal. Flood narratives from Mesopotamia to distant continents describe divine cleansing followed by retreat. Were these allegories warning humanity of its fragility before divine power, or were they veiled memories of catastrophic events after which the gods disappeared from sight? Standing before the ziggurat of one might imagine the final rituals, priests ascending the sacred steps, offerings in hand, eyes fixed on the sky, waiting for answers that never came. Did the Anunnaki slowly fade from legend, or was there a singular moment of departure so abrupt it imprinted itself in the consciousness of generations? For archaeologists, this transformation symbolizes cultural progress, the natural transition of belief systems over time. For others, it remains a mystery, a lingering question whether these myths conceal traces of genuine encounters with beings whose reasons for leaving are as incomprehensible as their arrival. Thus the question endures, suspended between mythology and history. What stories truly describe the Anunnaki leaving Earth, and why were they divine forces whose retreat marked the birth of human independence, or were they travelers from beyond whose withdrawal left humanity searching the heavens, waiting for a return that may never come? Beneath the blazing sun of southern Mesopotamia, the landscape remains silent. It stands holding the memory of gods who once descended and perhaps one day might descend again.